graduate students. Welcome to the first symposium held by three universities, Universitas Islam International Indonesia, the University of Melbourne, and the University of Hong Kong. And this symposium is managed by our newly established the Center for Education Research, or we call it CDR. Okay. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that the educational leadership does not exist in a vacuum. It is shaped by the cultural values, beliefs, and societal norms of the communities we live in. The way a leader makes decisions, the way they communicate, and the way they build relationship with teachers, students, parents, and the wider community is influenced by the culture in which they operate. Nevertheless, much of the academic scholarship in this field remains rooted in the Western paradigm. The theories, the models, the leadership frameworks frequently emerge from the American or European context. And the question is, are these models always relevant for our own cultural realities in Asia? So that question lies at the heart of today's symposium, and we will examine educational leadership through an Asian culture lens, exploring how leadership practices in different Asian countries are shaped by their unique cultural and belief system. And before we begin our discussion for today, it is my great pleasure to invite Professor Nina Nurmila, the Dean of Faculty of Education of IIIU, to deliver the welcoming remarks. Prof. Nina, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lukmanul Hakim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank Dr. Bambang Sumintono, one of the lecturers at our Faculty of Education, who initiated this first symposium together with his partners from various institutions. Yeah, I'm glad to see you again, Dr. Donny Adams from the University of Melbourne. This is, I think, the second time we meet online after your speech at our joint webinar between IIIU and the University of Melbourne. So we are looking forward to have further academic collaboration as discussed earlier, like the possibility of having a dual degree between IIIU and the University of Melbourne. And as I told you that LPDP, our endowment fund in Indonesia, is very supportive to our university to support the dual degree at IIIU and our partner institution. Yeah. And well, in addition, there is a currently split site master program that we can jointly organize under the shared sponsorship between Indonesia and Australian government. That's to strengthen the relationship between Indonesian and Australian universities. And I'm happy to meet also Dr. Tan Cheng Yang. Well, you told me that I just need to call you CY. That's very easy from the University of Hong Kong. Well, nice to see you. And we are looking forward also to have similar collaboration in developing a double degree program between Faculty of Education at IIIU and the University of Hong Kong. And of course, we will seek support from LPDP. And I would like to thank also Miss Nicole Lee. We have met you just now. She is the vice principal at Frontier International Secondary School. Happy to see you here. And we are waiting for Ibu Halimatus Sa'diyah. I hope she is here already, the principal at Madrasah Aliyah Negeri 11, Jakarta. And my study shows that the higher the level of school, the least number of female leaders. So I'm very happy that today, based on this finding, I believe that both of you, yeah, Miss Nicole and Ibu Halimatu Sa'diyah, must have a special leadership capacity that can bring you into your current position of leadership. Yeah. Uh, And last but not least, of course, I would like to thank you, Dr. Lukmanul Hakim, another lecturer from the Faculty of Education, who will moderate this first symposium. Yeah, and as this is the first symposium, you will hear further either from Dr. Bambang or Dr. Lukman about the future second symposium. That I think this will be in next 2 months, if I'm not mistaken. And I see also a couple of faces from the University of Melbourne, like Dr. Ririn, and then I see Bernardito Moreno from the University of Melbourne. So, well, I'm sorry I cannot tell one by one your name, but we are looking forward to listening your knowledge and expertise on the issue of culturally informed educational leadership in Asia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Prof. Tina, for your insightful opening. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we start, I would like to show one. Okay. Today we have three speakers from the university and two speakers from the principal of schools. So Dr. Doni will discuss about school leadership and cultural values in Malaysia, and then Dr. Bambang will discuss about harmony and hierarchy getting educational leadership in Indonesia, and Dr. CY will discuss about unpacking the Singapore educational story, leadership, values, and system. And the two principals will share about their reflective experience becoming the principal in Asia. Okay, for our first speaker, I would like to invite Dr. Dani Adam. Okay, Mr. Dani Adam, he is currently a lecturer in educational leadership at the Faculty of Education, University of Melbourne. Previously, he served as the director for the Center of Research in International and Comparative Education at the University of Malaya, Malaysia. He was a recipient of the Emerald Young Researchers Award 2021 by Emerald Publishing and is currently the co-editor-in-chief for educational research and evaluation and the editor for Kogan Education under Taylor and Francis. He is actively involved in research and development work towards the area of inclusive school leadership and school-wide reformation of the inclusive education agenda in Malaysia. Okay, without further ado, Dr. Adam, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome and good afternoon to our Dean of Triple IU, Dean Dina, and also our moderator, Dr. Lukman. Dr. Bambang, it's always nice to see you again. Always when I see you, there's always a white smile. And nice to meet Nicole as well, and also Dr. CY. And I see there are some very familiar names here, especially to my beloved colleagues, Dr. Bernie from Melbourne, Dr. Ririn, also warm welcome. And there are quite a number of Malaysian scholars and students here with us. There are also a few from Melbourne as well, especially Caitlin. Thanks for dialing in as well. I also noticed that there are a few coming from familiar networks that we are in, and also a very warm welcome. So no pressure, being the first speaker. I'm going to talk about school leadership and cultural values in Malaysia. Just before I go on, can you all see my slide? Is it all fine and good? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
All
it's
right.
good.
Great, great. Thank you. Right. So here we are talking about school leadership and cultural values in Malaysia. And you will see that in my first slide, I've put the pride of Malaysia, which is the Twin Towers. At that time, it was built, it was the tallest tower in the world. But at present, it's no longer the tallest tower in the world, but it's the tallest Twin Towers in the world. So we do have some sort of title still attached to that famous building in Kuala Lumpur. And these are some snapshots of how schools and our students and our classrooms looks like, especially in Malaysia. And I'm really looking forward to hear the insights from Indonesia and Singapore from Dr. Bambang and CY. You will see that Malaysia is very well known for its multicultural society. If this was a face-to-face session and you are able to name every culture that you can see in that picture, you will get a big prize. But unfortunately, it's an online session. So you could see that it's a very diverse, it's a very multicultural society. And the main ethnic group in Malaysia are the native Malays. And the largest population that comes after the Malays are Chinese and Indians. And the culture of Malay in Malaysia draws from a varied culture, and we have many people coming from different backgrounds. That's what makes Malaysia a very multicultural country, and one of the country that has the most culture and diversity in Southeast Asia. So to truly appreciate the rich culture that we have in Malaysia is to see how culture is actually captured in pictures like this. So where we could really appreciate the diversity and uniqueness of each of the culture. So for me, I always see culture as how spices brings flavor to our food. Culture brings a lot of meaning to our life. So that's the case of Malaysia here. Now, as much as we see that it's a very multicultural society, we also have many types of schools. So the Malaysian education system, like its cultural ethnicity, are very diverse. So we have existing national government schools, we have private schools, and these private schools consist of Chinese independent high schools, and we also have Tamil independent high schools. And we call the Chinese and Tamil independent high schools as vernacular schools. Okay, and why do we call it vernacular schools? It's because these types of schools are primarily catering for the Indian and Chinese communities, where the Tamil schools, the main medium of instruction is in Tamil, where else the Mandarin Chinese schools, sorry, the Chinese independent high schools, the main medium of instruction is Mandarin. So in the Tamil vernacular primary schools and the Chinese independent, they still follow a unified curriculum similar to the national government schools, but it's just that you have that Malay and English language as a compulsory subject that is being made in the schools. So at present, there are about 523 rough estimation of Tamil independent high schools in Malaysia. And Tamil education at the moment is only available at the primary level stage. So for this presentation, as much as Malaysia is very culturally diverse, I will be focusing on the Tamil independent high school culture. And before I go into that, just to give you an overview about the education system in Malaysia. So we are known to be one of the most highly centralized education system in the world, and that is because the governance of the education system is divided into 4 levels. You have the federal level, which is by the Ministry of Education, and then you have the state, which is by the state education. You have the district, which is the district education office, and finally the lowest level is the school themselves. So we see that the literature on educational leadership has established that school leadership is very much context sensitive, and how our school leaders act, how do they practice, is very much influenced by the social processes. And when I talk about the social processes, I meant the school culture itself. So if we look at the school leadership and Indian cultural values, first of all, there has been a lot of call for more research looking at cultural perspective on leadership, and in particular, what is the role of the school principal. But at the moment, as much as it's a developing area, and much research is currently being done on the scope of leadership and culture, there has been very few empirical studies that has particularly explored how leadership practices, particularly of the principal, is very much different in and how does it look like in different cultural settings. So that is where we conducted this research. We wanted to offer insights into what are some of the characteristics of head teachers. We don't really call them principals, because in Malaysian primary schools, they are called head teachers. In secondary schools, they are called principals. So we look at head teachers' instructional leadership, and there's a reason why I say instructional leadership, because the findings shows that, and how does their leadership is influenced by the culture of the Tamil vernacular primary schools in Malaysia. So we conducted this study as is one of the first studies in Malaysia. We conducted it using a qualitative single case study approach. There was semi-structured interviews conducted with 13 head teachers, and the minimum years of experience that we selected was 3 years and above, so that we could really reach data and that the principals had sufficient time to implement their own philosophies and understand the school culture in much deeper sense. And at the moment, the study is only extended within the federal territory of Kuala Lumpur. So are you all excited to see what is the findings for this research? Okay, so when we talk about first of all, we talk about the findings, it's very important for us to first understand about what is actually the Indian cultural values. So when we were exploring, first thing we understood is that in the Indian culture, they believe that there is the concept of rebirth. Okay, so there's life after death, and there is the concept of rebirth, and the next life is very much influenced by their way of life currently. So how they are behaving and how they are acting in the life today is very much influenced, okay, by their next life that is to come. They believe in reincarnation after death, and that's very much dependent on their conduct in present day. They are always striving to gain self-respect. They are very self-confident and mostly authoritative in their conducts. And here they are striving to always be in their best behavior. And in this is because they intend to be reborn in a higher caste. So whatever caste that they belong at present, they believe that in their best behavior, when they are reborn, they move up to a higher caste. And that is where abiding with family and society traditions is there. And having the values of modesty and politeness is of very much importance as part of their cultural values. So as far as we understand the cultural values, we can see that how these cultural values influences the leadership practices of principals. So if we look at the first one, we saw that head teachers are mostly setting visions and goals. And we noticed that the head teachers in the study, they were very much compliant towards the goals and vision of the State Education Department, to the Ministry of Education. And mostly they waited for instructions from the State Education Department instead of going about and instead of moving forward and setting their own school goals. And why instructional leadership is because the practices of the head teachers here is very much influenced by the Malaysian Education Blueprint, which is the formal educational policy of Malaysia. And the Malaysian Education Blueprint has a focus on instructional leadership. So their leadership practices is very much oriented towards instructional leadership. So the first, we saw that they are setting visions and goals, but at the same time, those visions and goals is very much dependent on the State Education Department waiting for instructions. Second, we noticed that there is an emphasis on developing holistic students. So many of the students from the Tamil Independent High School, they come from underprivileged families. They have come from very low social economic background, and sometimes there are some social problems along the family backgrounds, for example, drug addicts and minor criminal background. So the head teachers, they emphasize that it is their moral responsibility that as much as students come from this type of background, that they learn something when they come to school. And it is their moral responsibility to produce well-rounded students who are not just academically sound, but also possesses good moral values. We also saw that in the findings, there was a lot of shall I say data on supervision and evaluation. So we saw that head teachers themselves are practicing high levels of instructional leadership. They are very much involved in lesson observations. They go through a classroom, they see the teachers teaching, they see the students, and they are walking around the schools. They felt that most importantly, that teaching and learning must be effective, and improving teachers' capacity to enhance classroom learning is also a priority for them. And this is where it flows to the next theme, that maximizing teaching and learning is of utmost importance. They try to reduce interruption to instructional time in the classroom. This means that priority is given to academic and teaching rather than co-curricular activities. So much co-curricular activities time are reduced. Sports time is prioritized, but not given as much emphasis as academic time, as classroom time. So they ensure that the instructional time, the timetable and the subjects that was set is protected as much as possible, and priority is given to lessons in schools. Next, we saw that as much as there is a priority on the students, and there is also an emphasis on to acknowledge students' achievement. So we saw that head teachers believe that for students to be motivated, they are to be rewarded as well. And this is where rewards to positive behaviors helps to increase the students' interest in learning. Students are often provided with incentives to help them to be more successful, create a sense of accomplishment among them. And head teachers also makes it a point to praise students during the assembly. And one of the nicest findings that we found, you can see that the picture in the slide there, we found there's a lot of pictures of students' achievement across the school. And these pictures are all placed across the notice board. And there are some pictures that students are getting prize during prize giving ceremony and so on. And the next one that we found is that principals emphasizing on creating a collaborative working climate, and all head teachers are emphasizing that collaboration is of utmost importance among teachers. Teachers need to help one another. Teachers need to exchange ideas with one another. And the goal is to improve the teaching and learning in the classroom. Teachers were very much involved in the planning and decision making, and teachers were also actively sharing resources and expertise with the goal for students learning at the end. So the conclusion that we can draw from this study and the implication that comes from it is that we saw that as much as there is a focus on Indian cultural values, but we see that it's very much related to the head teachers' leadership practices, because the head leadership traits and practices are very much influenced by the culture of their schools. And we see that the head teachers here, they take very less risks. They avoid setting realistic, achievable goals for their own schools. There is this uncertainty avoidance there, because again, it's conformity to a higher order, conformity to the authority. Head teachers here are readily accepting responsibilities. They cherish opportunities being in command, and you can see that this is very much in tune with the Indian cultural values. Leadership practices are also very much grounded on moral principles. Moral principles like modesty, obeying, and all this are very much part of the school Indian cultural values. It's embedded within teachers, it's embedded within the students. And here we can see that as much as they are instructional leader in their schools, they are also pretty modest in their leadership approaches. And modesty, we found, is to be an important value in their school. Again, as much as we found that this is the leadership practices, but modesty as a value is also in tune or very much similar to what we have found in the Indian cultural values. So that's all for my presentation this afternoon. So terima kasih. Thank you for listening. This is my email address. And if you would like to read more on the findings from this study, you can get a copy of this really nice book. And this chapter and the findings that I'm presenting is from this chapter, Instructional Leadership Practices in Primary School, a Malaysian Indian Culture Perspective. Now, there is also a similar study that has been conducted on international school leaders in Malaysia, and this is a journal, and this is the link and the title of that journal. So you'd like to know more about how cultural values and leadership is connected in a context of Malaysia, this will be your reading. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Doni. Please applause for Dr. Doni.
Thank you.
There is a very interesting research, how reincarnation and the belief influence the leadership, Okay, now for the second speaker, I would like to invite our very own lecturer, yeah, Dr. Bambang Sumintono. He will discuss about harmony and hierarchy, navigating educational leadership in Indonesia. Bapak Bambang Sumintono is our head of department for PhD, and he has a nickname actually in our campus, Bambang Scopus Sumintono, because he's a very productive writer. Yeah, so I would hopefully that I can get the barokah from him to be able to write as much as him. Okay, Dr. Bambang Sumintono, the stage is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Lukman. I'm very embarrassed to anyway, thank you very much. Okay, welcome and then very good afternoon to you all. Okay, so Budakan, actually, this is initiated by Dr. Doni, and he approached me and CY to have this symposium, and then I'm very happy. And then what we call is we can continue this from different topics. For example, today we discuss about education leadership. Maybe the next one could be about teachers, for example, right? So not only myself has become a speaker, so maybe other teachers like Pak Lukman also very interested to share the study or the findings, right? Anyway, right. So not like Dr. Doni explaining about a single study conducted by himself and then his team, right? So my part is what we call sharing about my previous work that usually refer to literature review, right? So, but the theme is similar, right? So the same book chapter that Dr. Doni already showed to us, there's one chapter that write very what we call excellent by Dr. Cheng Yong Tan. So if you have any difficult question, don't ask to me, ask Dr. CY. So because he's the one who can explain comprehensively about cultural context in terms of leadership, right? So you're very good, CY, in terms of that. So I'm also very jealous that you can write like that. Okay. Anyway, I would like to share screen from here, right? Okay. Anybody can see this one?
Coming, it's coming. Yes.
All right. Okay. Good. Right. So, okay. The title actually is what we call this intentionally just to mention that these two things that based on my literature review research, okay, and then already published what we call book chapter and journal that these two things is what we call something that very what we call uh, clearly happening in terms of education leadership in Indonesia, right? So if you like to have the PDF, right? Don't hesitate to email me. I'm very happy to share, right? And then maybe you can have any other ideas in terms of developing the study, and I'm very happy to help. Okay, or if you want to collaborate, more than happy to do that also. Right. So first of all, I would like to share that similar to Malaysia, but more complex. So Indonesia is very what we call very complex and wide, and then very multicultural country. Okay, as you can see, Indonesia is located south of Malaysia, right, and also close to Singapore. Okay, and then if you see this picture, you can see that the range of the color showing about each what we call in Indonesia suku bangsa or ethnicity or what we call is part of the group of certain culture identity, and it is very complex. Of course, the biggest part is in Java Island, right? In the western part, we call it Sundanese, and then in the middle and eastern part, we call it Javanese. Okay, so this is big two what we call big culture two culture group Indonesia with dominated big to the political position also as well, right? So any other tribe in Indonesia or cultural group here, they have their representative. If you are Indonesian president, you always headache to choose any big cultural group have representative in the government, right? So it's showing about very wide. And you see here is based on the identity of what they call it suku bangsa or ethnicity or cultural group. But at the same time, they also carry another identity like religion, right? So 87% of Indonesian are Muslim. So most of the Indonesian are what we call have identity as Muslim, and of course it also will reflect to the way how they interact, to the way how manage their school, to do what we call leading their school organization, right? So this is one example in the context of culture identity, right? So another thing that I think need to inform is that similar like Malaysia, right? So Indonesia start the Indonesian what we call education system starting in the colonial era, where Indonesia are we call colonized by the Dutch, okay, more than 100 years. So all the values and cultures actually we inherited from the Dutch. And then we just got the independence in 1945. And from 1945 to 1950, so there's a big what we call physical revolution. We just starting develop our education system, we just starting develop our countries starting from 1950s as Indonesian context. We usually call this as old order era. So you can imagine that during this independence era, the enrollment of student in the school increased 5 times. So showing that during the colonial era, not so many participations of the school is really allowed by the colonial government, right? And we inherited what they call it as centralized system. Okay, so you can see uh, Indonesia is 10 times bigger than Malaysia, but we what we call manage the whole education system into a single centralized system, right? Then we have another situation, we call it as new order when Suharto come to power. And this very big situation that come up is the first one is the expansion of education. You can imagine from 1974 to 1978, education budget increased 12 times. So this is because of the oil bonanza. And with that money, so we expand our education system, especially at the primary school level, and we recruit so many 100,000 of teachers, okay, and massive teachers training. The unique thing that happened during this era is that the government emphasized so much on economic stability, growth, and efficiency, but it led to the country's identity as we call it as bureaucratic authoritarian state. So it is forbidden for you to have another thought, forbidden for you to develop or to manage school differently, right? You have to follow order what the government said to you, right? And then Suharto, what we call the New Order debacle in 1998. So we have another government that we call now as the Reform era. And this is what we call the democratization era, starting from 1998. Then we have another different type of governance system when we just avoid what we call centralization, we offer what they call it as regional autonomy. So district level have their full right to manage their school system, especially for lower primary and primary school and lower senior secondary school. So it's from year 1 to year 9, right? And at that time, so we also introduce what they call it as principal training. Okay, previously when we have principal training, with only just indoctrination how to become more obey to the government. But during the reform era, we just introduce more professional kind of training to make the principal more good in terms of managing their school, right? So Indonesian school system is very massive and is very complex. Okay, so if you can see here, so in terms of primary to secondary school system, we can separate into one, we call it decentralized system, which is what we call secular system or public school system. And on the right hand, centralized system is the thing that usually is apply in the context of Islamic educational system. Okay, so it is under Ministry of Religious Affairs. For the decentralized system, mostly is under Ministry of uh, what you call this primary and secondary education, right? So around 300,000 schools. Okay, you can imagine that there are 55 million students and then more than 3 million teachers. And as already mentioned, we have two distinctive administrative system, decentralized, what we call as secular public system, and then we also have Islamic based system, okay, under Ministry of Religious Affairs. Right. So if we talk about uh, culturally situation, so this is the three sources that you can refer to. The first one, it is about how to become Principal Indonesia, which is published in 2019. And then the second one, it is published in 2023. It is a similar chapter that contributed by Dr. Doni and CY also. And the last one, it is talking about the situation that systematic literature review written by Nasib Tua Lumban Gaul. She's come from North Sumatra, right? So what I can share in this occasion is that the first one, that something what we call salient in the context of education leadership in Indonesia. The first one is that if you see, this is one of the a good example talking about principal leadership that reflecting about cultural values. Okay, so written by Professor Raihani from UIN Pekanbaru. So, based on his research, he said that Indonesian principle emphasize so much in terms of what he called as the keluargaan, kinship or family-like relationship, and also kebersamaan, is it togetherness. So, we emphasize so much in terms of harmony. We don't want to make any dispute. We like to have something that everything is smooth and nothing what we call opposition in our school system, in our education institution, right? Another thing that come up is what they call it as musyawarah. So it is prioritizing consultation to reach a shared decision. So if you what we call try to do a Google search, for example, using Google Scholar, and then you type education leadership, and then you type musyawarah. There's so many research has been done in Indonesia, but mostly written in Bahasa Indonesia, and then they are more talking about how to implement the musyawarah principle in the context of school organization. All right. Okay, another thing that I would like to share with you is this is the largest study about principalship in Indonesia. It is what we call as uh, published by SCDP, Analytical Capacity Development Partnership. So they collected very big number of principal in their study, which is around 4,070. Okay, so they asking very simple questions about, they call it in Indonesia, if you want to become principal, so you have to fulfill what they call it as principal competencies, something like that. So maybe you have another question, but this is the policy that from the government talking about what we call as the kind of values that principal to have. Okay, so the first thing that usually they mention is that the most important thing is about management, not about leadership, not about development. So Indonesian principal tend to stick more to the what they call it as managerial competency. So everything has to follow the administrative process. Okay, so it is showing that for them, okay, it is a kind of legacy from the new order era. Everything that related to the administration, managerial thing is the most important thing for Indonesian principal, right? The last part that I would like to share is that as a most populous Muslim country in the world, so at the same time, so it is also showing that the dynamic in the Indonesian society. So Indonesian Muslim tend to have more what they call moderate and progressive. So this is not so many research has been done in this context. So if some of you are really interested to do research regard to the Islamic education leadership, I think if you want to study here in Triple IU, we are really welcome, and then we are really happy to guide you and then to be part of that one. Okay, why? So I mean, as the very big and populous Muslim country in the world, so Islamic cultures and belief is something that their identity. Okay, and at the same time, research from many studies showing something like Islamic cultures, like amanah, trust, is the thing that you want to express and you want to establish in order to show about your identity as a Muslim also. All right, I think that's all for me. Thank you, Pak Lukman. Back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Bambang. Please give applause to Dr. Bambang. Yeah. Now I would like to introduce our next speaker. It is Mr. Tan Cheng Yong, PhD, from the University of Hong Kong. He will discuss about impacting the Singapore educational story, leadership, values, and system. Mr. He asks us to call him Mr. CY. Okay. Mr. CY is an associate professor of social context and policies of education at the University of Hong Kong. His research program critically investigates how different sources of influence give rise to educational inequality and other complex issues that require comprehensive educational solution in the form of educational policy, leadership, and practice. In his research, he has employed both theoretical and empirical analysis. In particular, he uses a comprehensive suite of methodological approaches, including multi-level modeling and latent class, and also the state-of-the-art three-level meta-analysis and meta-ethnography for integrative systematic reviews of quantitative and qualitative studies, respectively. Okay, without further ado, give applause to Mr. Tan Cheng Yong, PhD. The stage is yours, Mr. CY.
Thank you, Dr. Lukman. So good day to everyone. Let me just share my screen. I'm aware of time. I will strive to keep to time, right, so that we can have a conversation later on. Okay. Yep. I hope you can see my screen. Let me just try to get rid of something. Okay. So I'm Cheng Yong Tan, or CY, from the University of Hong Kong. I'm actually a Singaporean, and that's why I'm focusing on the case of Singapore, although I've been here in Hong Kong for the past 12 years. So the big questions that will frame my sharing: why do education systems differ and the levels of effectiveness? how does educational leadership shape the development of schools and the larger education systems? What cultural values inform ed leadership? And finally, how do systems levels characteristics enable ed leadership to be effective? And we'll address these different questions using the case of Singapore. As the two speakers before me have shared repeatedly, context is all important, and we will interpret these notions in my presentation with the case of Singapore context in mind. I'll be drawing on 5 studies that I have published with colleagues in the past decade or so. This is the first one. This is a more recent one on cultural values in Singapore school leadership in email 2024. This is another study that I published with Clive Dimmock, explaining the success of the Singapore case education system in the British Journal of Ed Studies in 2016. This is a working paper that I like very much, again with Clive, back in, I think, 2015, where we talk about a difficult issue, the tension between meritocracy and equity, again in the Singapore context. This is another paper with Clive where we talk about how Singapore implements education policy. This is an email in 2014. And this is the last study in the Journal of Educational Administration, where we try to understand ed leadership in Singapore using concepts like tight coupling, sustainability, scalability, and succession. So I'll be deriving issues and insights from these 5 studies to try to understand a little bit about ed leadership in Singapore. So some quick context. Well, in Singapore, because the system is very, very small, we only have about 360 schools, most of them government-owned, and therefore human resources are consciously aligned so that they can be strategic to achieve our goals. In the school system, there are 3 career tracks, the teaching, specialist, and leadership tracks for all teachers. And you can imagine for school leaders, those will be identified on the leadership track. There is rigorous performance appraisal system, and we also annually rank teachers and leaders' leadership potential. Leadership training, another interesting phenomenon in Singapore, is only done by the National Institute of Education. And this is significant because it's only done by one institution. You can ensure uniformity in leadership values and practices. Principals are rotated every 5 to 7 years in line with a graduating cohort. And there are clusters where each cluster will oversee about 13 to 14 schools. And these 2 concepts enable cross-pollination of ideas from schools, across schools, and within the whole system for scalability. While the system tries to professionalize teachers and school leaders, but we must note also there's this cultural context of bounded autonomy. In terms of teachers, the system tries to recruit the top 1/3 of graduates to join the teaching force. They offered competitive salaries. They are very structured professional learning communities, and all this give rise to professionalism. In terms of principal training, aspiring principals undergo the LEP program at the National Institute of Education, and that ensures alignment of these leaders with MOE's wider vision. And interesting to note also at the school level, principals act more as line managers under the central guidance of the Ministry of Education. While these are all about professionalism in teachers and principals training and development, they should be understood as contrasted with this concept limited agency. They lack autonomy in general over curriculum design because the overall curriculum is centralized, but they are very good in efficiently implementing policies. So there is a lot of coherence in the small system. There's another concept that we find very helpful to understand the Singapore case, what I would call the leader-teacher compact. This is in a way informed by this notion of paternalism, where leaders are expected to exercise moral leadership at the same time exercising authority. I think this is a very Asian idea, and Donnie and Bam has earlier also talked about this concept in different words, but the meaning is the same actually. There is also this social compact where leaders, when they prioritize the well-being of staff and students, teachers are expected to defer to leadership decisions. So all this act to reinforce vertical cohesion in the system, while at the same time, we must also note that it constrains shared leadership possibilities. The idea of paternalism, this is a concept that we put forth in one of our publications with Clive, steering through paternalism. So the idea of bounded autonomy. Schools in Singapore are granted limited freedom because schools must act within the Ministry of Education's core principles, like meritocracy, bilingualism policy. At the same time, they have to have self-regulation. So there is the school excellence model, which is a model of school appraisal, and there is peer accountability structures. So all these ensure alignment with the overall national goals. And the cluster system, as I have talked about briefly, it provides superintendents for heading the clusters with proximal governance, because each cluster superintendent is only in charge of about 13 to 14 schools. And this balances oversight of the schools with very local support for each school. So we call this steering, directing, leading through paternalism. Then we're going to understand the cultural values that underpin ed leadership in the Singapore context. Well, I think it'd be unfair for me to say that ed leadership in Singapore is only informed by Asian values. We are indeed influenced by Asian values like collectivism, high power distance, but yet at the same time, we are also informed by an emerging set of national values. For example, it can be the idea of meritocracy. It can be the idea of focusing education for the future. So there's a moral responsibility for school leaders in Singapore to look into student and staff well-being and also for nation building. There's also a responsibility for school leaders to align what we do in schools with economic goals. For example, equipping students with 21st century skills so that they can be globally competitive. In terms of meritocracy, this is an ideal principle of resource allocation that has been in place for a long, long time. It talks about the allocation of resources by academic merit. So a student who performs better, a school that performs better, they have more resources so that they can actually further their performance. Now, this reinforces efficiency of resource allocation, but also there's a realization that it brings about equity gaps in a lot of situations. School leadership prioritizes innovation, digital literacy, and sustainability. And we have a lot of policies along the way, like this one, Teach Less, Learn More in the late 90s, focuses on balancing exam success of students with equipping them with future-ready skills. So there's this tinge of pragmatism here, right? We want students to do well, we want them to learn well, but at the same time, we want them to be ready for the future. Then there is this whole host of systems levels characteristics that enable what school leaders do to be effective. I will argue that there are multiple pathways to excellence, and I think Donnie and Bang will also agree to that. There is no one size fits all for school leadership to bring the schools to success. And in the case of Singapore, this is especially so. We are not very decentralized in terms of our schooling system. Yet at the same time, there is a big pool of very competent policymakers and school leaders and teachers, and there is a very strong set of cultural values that shape behavior, that move energy and resources in the same direction. So we are tightly coupled, we are a small system, so there's alignment between the Ministry of Education, schools, national vision, and I will argue also with the National Institute of Education that is in charge of training teachers and developing school leaders. School leaders broker innovations, and they maintain policy coherence, and principals, when they're given reforms to implement, they contextualize it in the school context, but they are mindful that they must align what they do with centralized accountability. So there's this overall coherence in this broader ecology in the education system. While this is not without challenges, there is increasing tension between meritocracy and equity, especially for disadvantaged students. There's also this tension between creativity that we want our students to have and conformity in the schools. And also to counter this emerging challenges, if you look at the scholarship on Singapore, people are talking about what they term meta-strategic leadership approaches that blends hierarchy with heterarchy. Heterarchy talks about the notion that relationships in schools need not be vertically structured. It can also be horizontal. So there's also this balance between pragmatism and idealism. Looking forward, well, what is an effective hybrid model? This is a big question. How sustainable is this whole leadership model that we're implementing in the light of rising inequality and the expectations for more democratic participation? And in terms of global relevance, how much more can we look into control as opposed to giving autonomy? So yeah, with that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. CY. With applause for the CY. Okay, those are our three first speakers, and after this we'll have question and answers for like 20 minutes, and after that we're going to invite our two speakers, Ibu Nicole and Ibu Halimah Tusadia. Okay, before that I would like to give the opportunity for audience to raise questions. Is there anybody?
Well, Lukman, maybe we can move on to the discussion first while waiting for the question and answer, Pak Lukman.
Okay. Oh, okay. There are two hands raised, Prof. Nina. First is Karamo and second is Ibu Berdi Moreno. Karamo, please. Karamo, please
Okay.
open your cam. Okay, please.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, good afternoon, Pak Lukman, Prof. Nina, and everyone, and the distinguished presenters. I think I've listened keenly and I've grabbed a lot of things, a lot of insights from the perspective of Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. And I think I've learned a lot. I just want to ask a question, basically from the perspective of actually all the different cultural backgrounds. But let me go to Pabambang first. Very interesting findings, how cultural values of Indonesia shape this leadership, school leadership styles. I don't know whether there are implications because we have, like we said, Indonesia is a multicultural society. Whether there are implications where these cultural values have some negative, we know positive, like some negative impacts on some of the school leaderships.
Is that all, Karamo?
Yeah,
Hello?
exactly. I wanted to ask the other presenters first, but I'm very much particular about the Indonesian perspective because I live in Indonesia and I know Indonesia shares some similar issues with my country, the Gambia. So that's why I'm very interested to know whether some of these cultural values have negative impacts on school leadership and then effective overall educational performance.
Okay, thank you, Karamo. I think I get the message. Okay, before that, I would like to invite Miss Berni Moreno. please.
Thank you very much, and congratulations first to all speakers. Hello, Donnie. It's great to have someone from our faculty presenting. Well done. Fascinating conversation, and I take the idea about cultural values and all that, and I'm thinking about the tensions that may arise when we think about where do these cultural values come from. On the one hand, we've got the cultural values of the national systems in which these schools belong. We've got the cultural values of the communities that the schools serve, but there's also the cultural values of the leaders themselves. So I'm thinking about that convergence, and what are some of the tensions that you've, as people, as the ones that you're the ones that have done the research in your areas, how do these tensions play out? And if we're thinking about how do we best prepare leaders in schools, which is very much my area of research, how do we do that in a consensus way so that they can prepare them for any cultural situation that they might encounter? I don't expect a solution tonight, but just some thoughts about these tensions of lots of cultural values coming together from lots of important places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Benny Morel. So I would like to give the opportunity to Dr. Bambang to answer the first question from Karamo, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Karamo. Okay, the school system is cannot release from what they call is the social system, right? So when we have a very different kind of social system, so the values and then the principle that usually what we call practically or implementally in this in the context of social system sometimes is not matched with the way how we manage the school, right? So some for example in Indonesian context, for example, we are in the public school system, we are emphasized so much in terms that school have to follow some certain regulation without very minimum creativity to follow. At the same time, the way that we prepare the principal tend to be what we call prepare them in the context of public, what we call as public sector employee, right? The school is a bit different because the what we call the customer is not easily can be measured in the context of satisfaction, for example, in the context of how we rate them in terms of success, right? So the way how to improve and then to play what you call as getting resources for the school and then managing the teachers and then the community is a bit different. So the way how we understand about managing school mostly come from Western perspective, okay? Is not always match or appropriate in the context of how we play in the context of our social situation. I think that's my comment. I think she can explain it much better than me.
Dr. Cheng Yong, Dr. Bambang invite you to give additional comment regarding the question. It's still mute. It is still mute, Dr. Cheng Yong. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was saying Dr. Bambang is always so kind and humorous with his words. Well, thank you for that question. I can only, I guess, try to address that question for Singapore. Now, I got a two-part response to your question, right? Regarding principles, values versus the system's values. I think in the Singapore context, because it's so small, it's so compact. So for you to become a school leader, you tend to be more similar than different. If not, you have a problem rising up the hierarchy, right? I wouldn't say the same for a larger system. Even in Hong Kong, where I'm based now, we have about 1,000 schools. They are very, very diverse. You have all sorts of school leaders' values that could be at odds sometimes with the Education Bureau. But in Singapore, I think it's more likely to see convergence than dissimilarity. So that's my first part of the response. The second is that I think school leaders in whatever context, they have their values, but overall, if they were to stay in the same system, especially in the public system, I think in terms of macro policy, macro directions, they will be in agreement. If not, they will have exited the system in the long term. This is my personal take.
Thank you, Dr. Cheng Yong. Okay, the next is the question from Miss Penny Moreno to Dr. Donny Adams. I believe you got the questions where this cultural value comes from, and how about the tensions to be play out. So please.
I think Bernie has something to say. Bernie, you want to unmute? Bernie?
I was just going to say that the questions for all the
Yeah,
presenters I'm interested in everyone's thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Please.
I think CY has partly answered the question by Bernie, and I think that we need to acknowledge when we are talking about leadership and cultural value, there's always that challenge and the tension, where principles, leadership practices, and styles, there are always some sort of clashes and tensions with existing cultural norms, and what Bernie has highlighted, and that cultural norms can come from three different levels, from the principles, values themselves, and from the community, so you always have that challenges and tensions. So I think that for us to address is not going to be a very simple, straightforward thing to address, but what for me, my perspective is to first have that level of transparency, that first of all, it's part, the cultural values is part of the school system, and that transparency has to also be evident in the leadership development program. Often when we talk about leadership development program, we see principals as participant of the leadership program, but for me, principals are more than that. They are not just participants, they are change agents. So if they are acknowledged, and the cultural tensions does exist, challenges does exist, and we bring that tensions as part of the leadership development process, principals can be change agents themselves. So we have to move beyond seeing principals as participants and bringing them into the whole sphere of change agents. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Donny. Okay, I would like to invite the other speakers to respond to Ms. Penny's question. Maybe Dr. Cheng Yong first.
Sorry, respond to what question?
She asks
In the chat box?
Oh no, it's still about Bernie's
I think
question.
CY has already responded to my question.
CY has already addressed earlier. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
And Dr. B, anything to add, Dr. B?
would you like something, Dr. B?
Hello. Oh, yeah. I think this already answered excellently by two of you. No problem.
Okay. There is one question in the chat box from Nalini Murugaya. She asks, first question is, in culturally diverse school setting, to what extent do the school leaders' religious belief influence their leadership practices? And sorry, I cannot read this one. How did the balance personal biases with the need for inclusive schools? So I'd like to invite the three speakers to respond to this question, please. Would like to be the first? Dr. Donny, please.
Well, I think for this question, we need to look at the aspect of, you see, for example, Malaysia, as much as it's a multicultural context, right? But we see that we have three predominant religions and races here. So we have the Malay, we have the Chinese, and we have the Indians, and we have the Bumiputras and the minorities. But I think that looking from a religious lens and not a cultural lens, these are two separate entities altogether. So our conversations at the moment is on the cultural lens, But if you want to look from the religious lens, and if you want to get real insights about how religion influences leadership practices, I will take the lead from Indonesia, because Indonesia, you have the majority of the populations are Muslims, and there has already been plenty of studies that has been done on how culture and religion can influence principles leadership practice. We don't see many studies that has looked at religion and leadership in Malaysia, and that's partly because it's enshrined in our constitution that we have to be a very religious sensitive country, because we are, culturally diverse. But taking the lead, Indonesia has a very good perspective. So I will refer back to Dr. Bambang's presentation earlier on Indonesian Islamic leadership practices.
Yeah, can I just add on to what
Sure, please.
Donnie has said for Singapore? It's the same thing. I think the emphasis is more on racial and religious harmony, more than unique religious values. And I have the same problem years ago when I was reviewing the literature on Singapore leadership, try to identify cultural values, including religious values, that shape leadership practices. I can find almost nothing. So you can see the way things evolve in different societies.
Thank you, Dr. Siwai. Pak Bambang, please.
Oh yeah, actually, it says the context of what usually called as Islamic education leadership also something very new, right? So it started in 2005 by one of the British scholars mentioning that we have to acknowledge the background and then the religious values that the principal bring in the school organization context. And in Indonesia, there's yeah, of course, there are many researchers already doing study about that, but most likely published in the local journals, written in local language, Bahasa Indonesia, and then we are waiting more and more researcher, right, in terms of doing the study about that, and then it could be more enlighten us. So, for example, a paper that just published by Supriyono is showing something that the way how what he calls uh, education practice can what we call as uh, make how the principals are managing the school. If the way the teaching in the school situation tend to be, for example, one way, so the kind of leadership style that bring by the principal also will be different, right? So there's also something new in the context of that that will be more research need to be done, right? And then we have two principal here, Miss Halimatu Saidah and Miss Nicole, that can be shared more about their practice that happening in their school. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bambang. Yeah, now I think it's the time for us to listen directly to the two principals. Yeah, I can imagine becoming leaders in schools in Asia is quite challenging. In one side, you need to maintain the harmony, but we also know from the Hofstede research that the power distance in Asian countries are very high, and we have this collective culture, and then we have this religious belief. It must be very, very challenging. So we'd like to invite directly from the two speakers. I would like first to invite Nicola Lee, Master of Education. She is the Vice Principal of Frontier International Secondary Schools. Miss Nicole Lee, she is an experienced and dedicated educator with over 20 years in international education. Currently, she is the vice principal at Frontier International Secondary School, bringing hands-on experience in teaching, teacher coaching, and school leadership. She has led meaningful initiatives in teacher development, blended learning, student well-being, and school improvement. She is committed to build character, encouraging self-directed learning, and sparkling curiosity in both students and teachers. She is recognized for a thoughtful and collaborative style that supports reflective practice and inspires lifelong learning. So without further ado, Ms. Nicole, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Lokman. Good afternoon, Prof. Lina, esteemed speakers, moderators, and fellow educators. Yeah, before I begin, let me ask a question I think many of us can relate to. All right. Okay. So have you ever switched gears in how you communicate with people from your own culture and from the different ones? For example, as I have conversation with a friend from China, but when another friend from Malaysia walks into the room, I find myself automatically switch gears or switch to a local accent and tone. So I'm sure many of you have experienced that, right? So here I am to share some of the practical practices that we use in our schools. So for context-wise, research data from 2020 identifies about 300 international schools in Malaysia, where 67% of the total students were Malaysian citizens, or the number is encompasses about 60,000 students, which means 33% of the students comes from all over the world. So as a Malaysian school leader in an international school, I live and work in a multicultural environment every day. Yeah. Our staff rooms are often filled with various different ethnic groups and cultures. And also our classrooms are full of students with varied languages, traditions, and different worldviews. For example, some of them like K-pop and some like Minecraft, right? Yeah, these are all the high school students that I'm teaching in the school. So even our school calendar reflects different celebrations of various communities. As you can see, this is our key public holidays in Malaysia 2025. Yeah. One thing I've learned through this journey is that leadership in such a culturally diverse environment cannot rely on a single approach, like how Dr. Siwa has shared. Especially when we are operating in an Asian community, where a large number of our staff also come from a local population. I want to share with you 4 real-life stories from my experience. Firstly, the first story is about teachers. Yeah, especially those from Asian cultures. So many of us are brought up being taught to respect hierarchy, which often means staying quiet when someone older or more senior is in the room. Now, even though we run a Western curriculum that encourages open discussion, we often see our teacher holding back in staff meetings. Yeah, and it's not that because they lack ideas, but because they're speaking up in a large group, it's not natural for them. And this means that we are missing out on their valuable perspectives. So to address this as a school leader, I introduced one-on-one mentoring sessions, giving the teachers a safe and comfortable space to share their ideas. So at first, they were quite reluctant and resistant, but we persevere on. And when they finally realized these sessions were not judgmental and they are open for discussions, they finally share openly and collaborate with us. And we are able to turn their ideas into very beautiful lesson plans. And some of these ideas even became programs for the school. On the student side, we also have students who are very confident and they express their opinion openly. So many of these students may have come from families who are used to debates and open discussions from young age. So while this is also a strength, but it clashes with our teachers sometimes who take a more traditional approach in the classroom. As Asian teachers, we sometimes deem direct confrontation as a sense as disrespectful in classrooms. So I do recall year 9 students who once told me, I want to ask questions, but I feel my teacher sees it as talking back. So from a teacher's perspective, the questioning actually disrupt the flow of the lessons, and they feel they are disrespectful if they stop and ask or stop the teacher and ask questions. But from the student perspective, it's actually just curiosity, and they want their answer. I want their question to be answered. So with all this, a lot of frustrations can occur in the classroom, and students often felt unheard, and the teachers felt their authority are being challenged. So this kind of tension needs a very quick intervention from the leadership. And often we have to facilitate open, guided conversations between students and teachers, helping each side to understand each other. It wasn't smooth all the time, but it allowed everyone to take a step back and listen to one another. Yeah. So of course, this will require ongoing conversation to keep building mutual respects and better communication. So this is also one of the biggest challenge in any leadership, I believe. Yeah. Thirdly, is something more operational, but just as important. It is common for Asian teachers and students to need time off during the term for religious or important family events. Yeah, in many schools, we have a strict leave policies, because we have the school holidays. But because they come from many different religious and cultural backgrounds, some important celebrations does not match up with the school holidays. So what do? Yeah, we do our best sometimes to accommodate, in fact, most time to accommodate without letting the student fall behind too much in learning. Yeah, when it's possible, we shuffle the timetable, we swap classes, we ask colleagues to cover lessons, and although sometimes it's not perfectly done, we do resort to practical options such as preparing lesson material in advance, sharing recorded videos, and also using the online platforms. So all this takes extra effort and coordination to make sure the learning keep going. And more importantly, I believe this will help to show the staff and students that we are making genuine effort to respect cultural identities of everyone in the school. Yeah. My fourth stories is related with a very rewarding experience. Finally, it is one of the most rewarding things I see in culturally diverse groups. And when they are given the right opportunities to work together, they actually bring fresh ideas and unique strengths that enrich our learning community. This is a photo of our recent project-based learning activity on creating a wholesome meal. Yeah, students from different cultural backgrounds each prepared a traditional dish. They intentionally plan it so that the dishes go well together and covered all the major food groups in the topic of nutrition. Right. This is not only deepening everyone's understanding of nutrition, but show how cultural diversity can make a lesson more relevant, engaging, and inclusive. And the best part is in Malaysia, the students were able to get all these ingredients easily for their project. So these experiences help to build empathy, creativity, and collaboration skills among the students and teachers. And they also have a sense of unity and satisfaction to learn from one another. So therefore, as a school leader, we often have to encourage ongoing conversations with teachers, parents, and students to build stronger bridges to connect many different ways of thinking. Yeah. And at the heart of these stories, the cultural diversity itself shapes how we lead and teach and learn together. So finding the right balance can be very complex, but I do believe with deep conversations, and we can create a school community where the differences provide more opportunity for growth and for school effectiveness. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Miss Nicole. It's very interesting presentation, especially the food. It makes me hungry. Okay, now I would like to invite the second speaker. So, this Miss Halimatus Sa'dia is the principal of Madrasah Aliyah Negeri. Miss Halimatus Sa'dia is a very productive teacher. She has made this book, the book of Menjadi Guru Bahasa Inggris Inovatif, how to be an innovative English teacher. Miss Halimatus Sa'dia has been becoming a teacher for 25 years. She used to teach in Cirebon. We can call maybe a little bit rural area, for about 11 years. And then she moved to Jakarta for the past 14 years. And then starting from 2025, she was appointed to be the school principal in Madrasah Aliyah Negeri 11. Okay, Miss Halimatus Sa'dia, the stage is yours. It's still mute.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good afternoon, everyone who are attending to the symposium. First of all, I would like to introduce myself that I am Halimatus Sa'dia. And I currently serve as a principal of Madrasah Aliyah Negeri 11 Jakarta, or State Islamic Senior High School 11 Jakarta. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to be invited and asked to share my experiences in leading this madrasah, which is located in Jakarta. This is also truly a valuable opportunity for me, and I feel both delighted and honored to be part of this important event. Just for your information, that the school I lead is under the Ministry of Religious Affairs of Republik Indonesia. And then all the students and parents are Muslims. So madrasah is a specific one for Indonesia. Madrasah 11 Jakarta is one of the madrasah located in Indonesians in the capital city, and then like the capital population in general composed of people who come from all the country. Jakarta's residents or Man 11's customers also come from many ethnic groups across Indonesia. They represent various ethnics in Indonesia. So they have or they represent differences of beliefs, values, characters, and also culture. Because of these differences, we feel that it is necessary to establish a unified program that bridges them toward a single goal, and we namely character education. And then to respond to the diversity, madrasah has developed a range of activities aimed at strengthening students' character. We believe that it is essential, important to nurture students' character in order to shape individuals who are morally upright, emotionally intelligent, disciplined, and capable of facing the future. At Man 11 Jakarta, character education is implemented through instilling the value of caring for the surrounding environment, such as smiling and breathing. It is seem like a simple one, but smiling and breathing as a form of appreciation and motivation, while also serving as role models for all students. Every morning, the teachers stand at the school gate to welcome the students with smiles and warm greetings. And to carry out this activity, teachers must arrive earlier than students. This earlier arrival demonstrates that the teacher's motivation to engage in activities together with students. Usually our teachers leave home after the dawn prayer fairly early when it is still dark. This also signifies that the teacher should build madrasah as a second home for the student and positioning them as their students' parents during school hours. And through this morning greeting, students also can learn to arrive on time, avoid being late, and come to school with high enthusiasm and motivation. Getting used to arriving before class begins aims to shape student discipline and feels of responsibility. Discipline is expected to develop from the habit of waking up earlier, especially considering Jakarta's traffic, which can occur even in the morning. And then the responsibility is also expected to grow from their awareness when they are late to school. And then usually a number of student councils will ask the reason for their lateness and recording it as the part of progress monitoring for the improvement. Second one is Man 11 Jakarta fosters in an environmentally conscious school culture. This universe concern for the environment carried out through many habitual practice and has become part of students' daily activities. For example, we can see from the picture that madrasah instill values of love for God by caring for the environment through maintaining cleanliness and protecting the school's ecosystem. This character development is implemented through various activities, such as schedule collective cleanups involving all members of the school community. In addition, environmental awareness education is also provided through habits like waste separation, recycling, and raising awareness about reducing waste production. And also we can see from the second photos that we are also instill environmental care by fostering tolerance toward differences. Currently, in Man 11 Jakarta, enrolled 2 students who has special needs that they are require special attention from the school community. Moreover, bullying remains a prevalent issue in student social relation. So the presence of inclusive students serve as a natural medium for students to learn towards special needs and serves required by others. And also this helps develop natural human empathy and awareness. Furthermore, the madrasah creates an egalitarian school environment by giving equal treatment and opportunities to all members. Position or activities that usually carry out and bias gender at Man 11 Jakarta are reversed by providing equal chance to all genders. For instance, the position of student council president is sometimes held by female students, whereas it is usually dominated by male students. And then the third, we strive to cultivate a solution-oriented mindset and the courage to engage and compete in the global area. Students at Man 11 Jakarta is increasingly realize that the world is becoming more interconnected and globalized. With this awareness, they understand the importance of equipping themselves with competencies needed at the international level. Here, madrasah no longer underestimated. Their alumni are now equally capable as graduates from other schools. As a part of this effort, we equip students with researching training. Here, the student guiding by some teachers can do research, and it's not just about fostering independent thinking, but also about instilling a constructive, reasonable, and responsible mindset. And we base student research on their concern for social or other issues to break down the students' curiosity. And also, we have networking or the cooperative with international institutions such as Bridge, which are Bridge as an international school partnership between Indonesia and Australia that it aims to improving teacher professionalism. As you know that we do some activities such as teacher exchange, and then a student has a discussion with the student from Australia, and they discuss about social issues, about genders, and many more. And the students say that after doing the discussion, they reflect that they noticeable change in mindset, and they being more confident because of participating in the Bridge program. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Halimatus Sadia. Applause for both our speakers. Okay, this has been a very interesting presentation. Yeah, how Miss Nicole, for example, explained what she did with the schools. I mean, in terms of whenever the teachers would how she can encourage the teachers to participate in discussion with the one by one discussion. That is very interesting. I mean, that is very typical Asia, I think. So I think we have reached the end of today's symposium. I must say that it has been enlightening and inspiring. We have explored an important and fascinating topic, and we also can conclude that it still has a big room for research to be discovered, yeah, for next. And on behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to express my sincere gratitude for our 5 outstanding presenters whose insight and expertise have enriched our understanding. And to audience, thank you very much for your presence, your engagement, your thoughtful attention, and hopefully you can join our next symposium. Please follow our Instagram. Yeah, we will always inform our latest program in our Instagram. Okay, thank you very much for the 5 presenters, Pak Bambang, Pak Doni, Pak Cheng Yong, Ibu Halimatus Sadia, Miss Nicole, and all the audience, Prof. Nina Nurmila. Once again, thank you very much. I will close by Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Lukman.
Thank you.
And thank you all,
Thank you.
Ibu Halimatus Sadia.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Ibu Nina.
For inviting me. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Dr. B. CY, thanks.
See you next
Thank
time.
you all.
Thank you.
Not
all.
not
good
easy
day.
sharing the stage with you too. So it was good.
Okay, bye. See you in
Bye-bye.
Hong Kong.
Thank you.
Bye, Nicole. Thanks. Bye, Halima.
Bye. Thank you so
you.
much.
Bye,
Nice to
everyone.
meet
Thank you
you.
for attending.
Yeah.